All right, we're back. We got a great podcast today. We're going to cover some real great things within recruiting, and there's nobody better to talk to than the coach we'll have on today. Um, Busy week this week. We got three podcasts rolling. So for those of you guys who are junkies of our podcast, you'll you get our fill, so you'll have that opportunity. Um, it's been growing. It's interesting how it went from when we first started. What number are we at now?
This is 54.
So like in the first, 5 or 6 people, because remember I was doing all those with Mike Farrell for a while, and then when we transitioned, those first 5 or 6 were like a 200, 300. Now they're all in excess of 1,000 plus. And every recast is 1,000 plus, which is great. So basically, if we do a podcast, the guest, this is just YouTube, by the way. I'm talking YouTube. YouTube is 1,000 plus everyone. So they're doing 5 to 10,000 on YouTube, and the Twitter ones are in excess of 10,000 each one.
Right, because those ones are like live or something. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I think because they put it like up top. You know what I'm saying? So people could just kind of like bang and go. Which is
I think that's really cool how they could it looks like a Spaces, you know what I mean, those, and you just click on it and watch it. But without further ado, our guest today, we're going to talk college football today. St. Anselm special teams coordinator, defensive back coach. He's been in the college football coaching circuit for a long time. He's been, I think I remember East Stroudsburg. You can remember some of the other spots, but I remember he used to recruit my area. I've sat down with him many a times. Fantastic recruiter.
Very good.
Yeah, I mean, one of the best in the Northeast. Fantastic, obviously, coach as well. I mean, I don't want to underscore his coaching ability, but his recruiting ability is second to none. And he's with at St. Anselm, and you've already seen the kind of recruits they're starting to get. And he's a large part of that, and the buzz along with that. Without further ado, let's bring in Coach Braine. What's going on, Coach?
Hey guys, appreciate you having me on.
Thanks, Coach, taking the time. Appreciate you.
We're excited to talk because, as you know, obviously because you're in it, college football is the wild west now. So, especially with respect to recruiting, so we're excited to talk to you about that. Before we dive in the depth on all that stuff, just give everybody your coaching background, and I know you've been around a long time as a coach, and so everybody really kind of gets the depth of your knowledge and understanding.
I mean, I don't know how deep you want me to go and bore you, but I was around when I was recruiting with the big maps that they had for each state, and they had 3 to 4 pages per county, and you're looking for the street or for the stadium lights in the air to find out where the high school was. That's no lie, because my first job recruiting was 2000 at Ferrum College, and there was 4 schools I had to hit in one day, and they were about an hour and a half apart in deep Southwest Virginia, and the address was all P.O. Box. So wow. I literally went to the center of the town, and I'd be like, okay, where's the high school? And then in those days, I had to bring VHS tapes to give to the coach so they could make copies and send back to me. And we were D3 at Ferrum, and no one wanted to send us anything because we were D3. But was there for a couple years, went to University of South Dakota for a year, went from there to Michigan Tech, where we won the conference, went to Northern Michigan, where I got my break to be a DC, and then came back to William Patterson I think I was there for 5 years. I don't know, where I worked with the current head coach, Sean Williams, and the former head coach, Jerry Floor, who's a good guy.
Great, dude.
We had a lot of success, went to East Stroudsburg for 5 years, and now I'm heading into St. Anselm for 5 years. I've never been to a place for more than 5 years, but I haven't been to 25 places in 25 years like some guys. Luckily I've been lucky with that, and it's been a wild journey, man. It's been cool. It's it's sometimes I forget that I am the old guy in the profession now, and because time flies when you're having fun.
Well, it's amazing how quickly it flies. I mean, I remember, you coming around from East Stroudsburg and before then, and sitting down and talk with you about prospects, and it's amazing how much recruiting. I mean, it's funny because you talk about 2000. Like, to me, it doesn't seem that long ago, but you're going from VHS to where
DVDs.
The DVDs to Huddle links, but the Huddle links obviously, or any link, I guess now, because there's a couple other services maybe, but those links changed the speed that you got stuff, and there's good and bad to that, right? That means you get overwhelmed with a lot of stuff that there was almost a naturally filtering system, right? With VHS and DVDs where, you can only produce them so fast. So coaches and athletes kind of shot their shot in the places where they thought they had an opportunity, right?
Yep.
And now they just shoot their shot everywhere.
Yeah. It's such a good point. Like, I never even really thought about it that way, because I remember very clearly when I was 18, my head coach was like, okay, give me a list of schools. And then before I gave him the list of schools, he's like, okay, this is where you can play.
Yep.
And that level and below. Like, I'll never forget, like, that was an IUP, still a good football program in Pennsylvania, but he's like, IUP, Slippery Rock, I don't know. East Stroudsburg, Millersville, potentially, yes. You have a better chance there than going to the upper echelon D2. And yeah, I mean, now it's if that DM's open, those kids are firing away, which is good and it's bad.
There's both to it. Yeah,
right.
It's almost it is what it is. It's almost right. Like, and it does give, I guess, like, you look at it on the positive side, it gives some kids that maybe wouldn't have been able to shoot their shot at a certain school the opportunity, and then there you get some kids that probably send you film and you're like, I'm definitely not the person you should be sending this film to. So it's really interesting. What about, so I mean, and and I'm so glad we have you on, because you're phenomenal from a recruiting standpoint, just the places you've been, the knowledge. Explain D2 to people, because D2 is one of, like, and me and Derek have talked about it. Not everybody understands it. Like, they know there's scholarship money in it, but they don't understand, like, FBS and FCS are fairly easy for people to understand for the most part. There's from a financial, and D3, most people understand for the most part is non-scholarship. Explain what the D2 football is, and the kind of how the opportunities work there.
I think that it's literally, I mean, literally it is in the middle, but I think it's part of the misconception is that everyone can play D3 for sure. And then if you're any good, you can play D2. And that's totally not the case. I mean, I don't think people realize how much talent there is.
They have no clue. No clue.
And every year I forget how talented you have to be until we have our first debrief from camp. Like, we look at every kid that's an upcoming senior that's registered for our camp. And then what we do after that and after the camp is we literally debrief. And often there's some players that we didn't think were going to be on our recruiting board that showed a lot of potential during camp. And then sometimes it's vice versa, where somebody looks tremendous on film and they may not have been as big as they said they were, or ran as fast as they were. So like I think it's when you really, really look at Division II, we get all the players that right now think that they should be playing FCS football. And it's coaches and players. Like, I'm been in it long enough when I hear a coach say, well, they really like him. They say they really like him and all this and all that. And I'm like, but they haven't offered him yet.
Yep.
Nope. That means they don't really, 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 really like him. And that means he's going to play at our level. And then there's kids that we see sometimes, and we're like, I don't think he's going to end up at our level. I think he's going to go higher, because he's got the frame, and those are the kids that literally have grown 2 inches since their season, or they've gotten bigger, faster, stronger. And there are some kids that were like, yeah, coach, he's going to probably go higher. And they don't always do that, but the Division 2 kid is the player that is missing something. Maybe he's not fluid out of his breaks when it comes to being a DB. Maybe he's 6'1.5" instead of 6'3" as a center. And when the thing that people don't understand is it's not about your height necessarily. It's about your reach.
Yes.
Like
this,
yes.
like I got to be able to get to that guy, and that's where the whole like tiny arm type thing kind of reach and all that. Cause how many times do you say that's a really good lineman, but he just doesn't have that to separate.
Right.
And that's maybe the one thing he doesn't have.
Right. Right. Yeah. I mean, and it's, again, it's not to try to, there's tremendous players that are undersized and they're outliers for sure. But when a Division I school is going to give a full ride or a substantial amount of money, at the FCS level to a young man, they have to be sure, because if you miss on an undersized player at any position, why'd you bring him in? He's undersized.
Like, you knew from the jump this wasn't going to work. Why did you try to double down to force something, right?
Right. But if you miss on a 6'5" left tackle that everyone else offered, well, it's the kid's fault.
Yeah.
What I mean? Like you blame the kid if he's supposed to be great. You blame the coach if he doesn't have the measurables and you took a chance on him.
Yep.
And then, when that 6-foot nose tackle comes in and he kicks butt, that coach that vouched for him usually is gone and doesn't get the credit. You know what I mean?
Like, he's already somewhere else. It's like, well, hey, thanks, buddy, because so-and-so is an all-conference guy. Like, appreciate it.
Yeah, like it's so, like for us at the Division II level, we can take some more chances on undersized kids,
right?
But you still don't want to put a lot of money into somebody unless you're fairly certain. And so like the cool thing about D2 is when we say we offer them, we're just offering them a spot and we're going to give them some football money. And that football money is going to change. And it's going to change. It's going to change. And we don't say, like, we offered a couple kids last night. We just say it could be any type of money. Like, I'm not telling you a dollar amount. We tell you a dollar amount after the visit's over. So we have all the pieces of information. So for instance, like if you are sort of aloof during the recruiting process, you're not doing your paperwork, you show up late, you're talking during your presentation, you're not going to get the great offer. So for us,
you'll get something, but you're not going to get what else. I think that's great. Like, I think that's phenomenal. Because now, like, even though I'm giving you something, you ain't going to get what that guy gets, because maybe you just showed me you don't have some of those little intangibles, right? So now I can't trust you to sit in a meeting room or make sure you're on time in class and, you're wearing the right shit at practice or whatever.
Yep.
Like, it's stuff, it's all matters. And these guys don't, you know what I mean? They have no clue that you're still being evaluated.
Correct. And here's the biggest thing that they don't understand is I'm the DB coach, and my head coach, Coach Adam, is great with me, and Coach Honorable, who coaches corners with me, he's great with me. Like, all three of us are on the same page. Like if I see a corner at camp and I say, hey, he's this, and this, we want to offer, they're like, cool, that's great. When we talk about the dollar amount we're going to give them, and I'm the only one that saw them, they trust me. And they're like, yeah, that's great. But if I see a kid at University of Pennsylvania and he's a running back, the offensive coordinator and the running back coach aren't going to necessarily be 100% in agreement with my opinion because I'm not the one coaching them.
Correct.
So what we say is you have to get in front of the decision makers. So if you're, for us, that's why I try to promote our guys to come to our New Jersey camp because our whole staff was there. Try to get guys to come to our Long Island camp. Because everyone's going to be there. So like I implore them. I had a kid last year, totally like the undersized kid. He was an undersized kid, loved him up, man. Hey, I love you. We're going to offer you, but you're going to get more money if you get in front of the whole staff because they're not going to believe me on what you can do. And he only went to D1 camps. And it didn't work out with us, and I don't even know what happened with him. But that's just an example. Like I think that you have to get in front of the decision makers for sure.
It's a great point. It's one of the so when kids are deciding like between mega camps and actual college camps. So if you and your coach have decided that you're borderline FCS guy, right? Could go D2, maybe a couple of FCSs like you. Talk about the importance of showing up. Like, so you touched on it. The kids all want to go to these mega camps, right? They think the mega camps is the way to go. And it's sold as, and you guys probably, you said it, you have one staff member there at a mega camp. Talk about the numbers of people. So I've told kids this a lot, and I used Villanova as an example as this. You go to the mega camp at, let's say, Rutgers, 1,000 kids. You're off in some group over in the corner, way yonder, with two coaches who may not have any interest in you whatsoever, but they're just working that station in that area, right, of your group. And that's where you are that whole camp. But there's 150 coaches there, but like you have 2 in your group, okay? And but if you went to, like I said, Villanova's camp, 150 kids at the camp, the whole staff there, right? Now you may only have one other. Maybe they allow another local college in there at a lower level or something like that. But talk about the relationship building that happens if you choose your camps properly. They come to a St. Anselm camp with the coaches there. There's 100 kids instead of 1,000. Talk about how the relationship can build when you could actually watch them work in each thing they do. Talk about that, because I don't think a lot of people understand how important that is.
Well, we had 2 sessions on Sunday. We had 60 and we had about 110 in the second session. And we had each of our coaches was coaching a certain position, so they knew everybody. And then there was a lot of overlap because we all were watching. Because, like, for instance, Coach Ferguson coached the O-line session. The second session, he's the OC also. Now he's watching the whole camp.
Yeah.
Coach Adam coached the linebackers. The first session, he was just watching the overall camp. So there's a lot of overlap. You're not going to get missed there. If you can play, you're not going to get missed. At the mega camps, this is a true story. I had a kid that came to our camp in May. This was 4 years ago. He went to a big mega camp, big D1 mega camp, and he was an undersized kid. Loved him. Okay. Loved him. And so I go to the D line just to see him and say hi. And they had 2 D line groups. They had the players that this particular college thought were the good players. And then they had the players where they weren't so good. And my recruit was down in the not so good section. He had nobody watching him. Nobody. I literally was like, get up here. You're coming with me. You're a really good player. Like, you don't belong down here. But they looked at his measurables and were like, yeah, well, we're not putting him with us. Because in all honesty, like when those big schools, they get a mega camp, they have a rating on all those kids.
Of course.
They already have a rating.
Yeah, they already know coming in, like, hey, this is a guy, you know, it's almost like they should just put him in a red hat so everybody knows who we're really looking at doubt. To make it that much easier, right? Like, hey,
they do. They do. And it's smart. Like, why are you not doing that?
Right, because you're wasting your time looking. I mean, look, you have a certain number of kids for a certain amount of time. And look, yeah, we got to weed through the process. Like, there are guys here that just think that they're never going to play at this level. So you know what? Go get your work over there. It's not that, look, it's nothing. Guys take this stuff so personal. I get it. But at some point, somebody's got to tell you, this is where you need to be. This is what you are. And look, I'm not saying there's not outliers that can't work to get to that, whatever. And now even more so with the transfer portal, like those guys have those opportunities if they really feel like they can make that jump. But at some point, you're going to have to swallow your pride and be told, look, dude, this is where you're at.
Right. And when you, like, for a small school, like we went to one last year. There was 700.
Yeah.
There was 450 upcoming seniors, and 90% of them were from Jersey. So Coach Bick and I, we literally took all the kids that had over a 3.0 out of those 450. So you're probably talking 300.
Right.
And
which is also good for our guys to know too. And you express that, like, look, if you're below a 3.0 GPA, you're not even getting it's not even a chance, dude. Like, we're not even, you're not even getting on the list. I don't care how good you are. Like, so you're already got 700 names, 3.0, bam, 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 bam. There's 200 gone right away. Like, guys need to understand how this process, all of these things go into it.
Yeah. And people will say, well, is it hard to recruit at a high academic school? Well, no, because you're actually weeding out half the population.
It's easier. You're not like, look, I don't even have to worry about those guys, right? Whereas at some schools, all right, this guy's a really good player, but he's got a 2.8 and maybe, you know, his grades are coming in. Now you're on the fence. Like, with you, it's just cut and dry. 3.0 or nothing. Bam, gone.
Right. And I was at, I'm not going to mention the name. I was at another school where we didn't recruit over 3.5. And the reason we didn't recruit over 3.5 is those kids weren't coming there.
Right. Waste of time.
So we're looking at 2.0 to 3.5. Some schools, their niche is literally 1.85, 1.8 to 2.2. Like it's legitimate. There's JUCOs that's where they live and die.
Oh, of course.
And,
yeah.
And it's totally fine. There, you know, I say it all the time. There's a place for everyone in the country who wants to try to play college football.
It's a great statement.
Because even if you're the worst player on your team, there's schools that will offer you a spot because they need to fill their roster.
It's it. We got to fill it out. We've seen it.
And you're going to get an opportunity. You're going to get an opportunity. And so there's absolutely nothing wrong with it. Football is a huge business. It's a business at every single level. Like, you know, you're using it for enrollment purposes. You're using it for TV revenue purposes. You're using it for PR purposes. You know, there's like the Ivies. They don't need the revenue, but that's a PR purpose. They want to have a great football program.
Well, you know, and I always say this, right? Like, you look at any school, right? The first thing most people ask is, how's their football team? Right? Like, and you think about, like, you know, high school, when you have a good football season to start the year off, whether you win something or you just have a good year, everything, like the entire school year, you set the tone for it being different. Like, it's usually the largest team in the school system, right? And it's, you know, you're playing one game a week, so you get a lot of people that want to come out and get to it. There's a lot of stuff around it. Football is just a game changer, right? And it's like, when schools are struggling financially, one of the first things they look, it's like football it's a lot of money, but it also does this. Like that's like the first thing they look at, right? And it's just so interesting to see how football can change that dial.
Coach, go back to where you were talking about, like how you were at the camp and there were 450 kids and there were 300. You looked at a list. There's 300 3.0. We kind of cut you off there. I wanted you to kind of expand on that part where you were going and how you went through that process.
Well, we Coach Bick and I watched every kid, and listen, we don't sit there and watch the whole highlight film. We're like 3 to 4 plays. Does he show flash? Yes. Highlight them, highlight them, highlight them, highlight them. So then I think we had like 125 we wanted to see. And there was only 2 of us. We probably saw 50 of them. So that's the problem with the mega camps. And it's only getting worse because there's mega camps on every weekend. So it used to be you had one big mega camp,
right?
And now there's 15 of them. And to be honest with you, like we can't get to all of them. And sometimes you need a weekend off, like someone's got a wedding, or you want to hang out with your wife on a weekend, and you can't go to them all. So we have to pick and choose which ones we go to, and there are some that are better than others, like that we enjoy and they're well run. But there's some schools or some mega camps where you get the list well in advance and you can get prepared, and then there's some where I've been to some where they never give you a list, and you're told to email them which number you like, and they'll let you know the person's name. And I'm like, I'm never going to come back here ever again. Like, it's not fair. So,
wow. That's really, really interesting. It's almost like if you can have a handful of the camps that are yours, and then you send a guy to the few mega camps that you think might be worthwhile for you. Because if you just got 60 times 5, that would be 300 prospects that showed up time to your camp that could possibly be guys. And obviously you're not taking everybody. You only have so many spots anyway. But you can get most of the guys that you think you probably can get half at least from just your camps. And then you're going to get the other half from recommendations, film, a mega camp, all the other resources that you might utilize. It's interesting because that divide of what the big schools are looking for and what even I would say like FBS, and then what everything below FBS has to do in order to get the prospects that they're looking for are really almost two completely different animals. Talk about, I guess what would be really interesting to hear is how does high school recruiting versus transfer portal recruiting work for you guys? Like, I guess together with it, I guess. How does that work for you guys?
Well, we what did we sign? Don't quote me. I think we might have signed 28 2024s, and we signed 4 transfers mid-year. Those 4 transfers mid-years they came in and they're just tremendous fits, just great kids. It's literally the only time that we can't find a kid is between the middle of August and the middle of November.
Oh yeah.
That's the only time you can't find a camp or a kid. And 10 years from now, you're probably going to be able to find a kid in the middle of October. There will be ridiculous rules where they can leave in the middle of their season, or you can pick them up and they can enroll in school. That's going to happen.
Like free agency period almost.
Yeah, it is. So like, if you have injuries during spring or somebody transfers out of your place, you have to look in the portal. And we do use it now as sort of like free agency. But with us, it's a lot different. Like, we can't take grad transfers, so that
cuts down.
That eliminates a lot of players, and they got to be good students. They have to be good students, and they have to want to be in a small school environment where they're going to have to pay a little bit. Like nobody comes for free at our place. Like the majority, we're not fully funded D2. So they have to pay a little bit too. Now, a lot of them, what we find a lot of is we're getting a lot of walk-ons. A lot of kids that walked on the FCS level that we were like, okay, so we're offering you this, this, and this, and you're going to go there for free. Everyone loves the kid that gets drafted that walked on to Iowa story. They all love that. But very few kids have the motivation and the grind to make it to accomplish what that kid did. You got to have some tools as well. But the walk on to the NFL story is great. The walk on to scholarship story is great, but it's still like, I don't know the numbers, but you're talking like the walk on to a scholarship story is probably in the 5%, man. Like,
yeah, barely. I mean, it's like, there ain't that many Rudies and all this other kind of nonsense stuff. You know what I mean? Like, even like your Cooper Cup stuff, like, like those kind of stories, you know what I mean? Like, they're just so rare, but because they get such publicity, mommy and daddy think that that's like going to happen. Right. And I get it. Everybody's got to like take that, or everybody wants that opportunity. But realistically, like I talk about it with Gabe all the time, like if you can do both, right, get an amazing education at, say, St. Anne's, and then also play football at a high level, like now you're rocking. What I also think is like a lot of these parents, they don't understand, and the kids don't understand, like, that's great. You want to go to that big school, but when are you actually going to play, right? Like you're going to be sitting possibly another 3-4 years before you might even get a sniff on kick return.
Right. It's no different than being a coach. It really isn't. Like, I would love to coach it at Penn State. I'd love to coach at Alabama, Clemson, but like, could I do that? If I wrote enough letters, I could probably get as a quality control, like assistant to the assistant to the assistant to the recruiting coach. And my job on game day would be to chart how many plays the left tackle has played.
Yes.
And I'm going to sit in an office. I'm going to get to work at 6 a.m. I'm going to sit in an office, and I'm going to be evaluating every film in America, and my neck's going to be all jacked up, and I'm going to be like, what am I doing? And it's going to last about 6 months before I'd want to take my job back, where I can actually make a huge impact on our team. It's no different. It really isn't. So you really just have to make the decision. Do you want to be happy, or do you want to reach a goal that may not be obtainable? And there's those stories of those 50-year-old coaches that make it big late in their career too, which is cool, But again, those are rare, and it has to be the perfect storm. So, I think it's tough for kids, because here's the thing about our society, and this is like the humans in the United States, in my opinion. 35 people can tell you the truth, not to do something, or you should do something or whatever. If one person tells you what you want to hear, you run with it.
Oh, hell yeah.
And
you only need that one
problem.
person to.
Yeah,
that one person tells you should be playing D1.
And you hold on to it. And that's
and you hold on to it, and you transfer, and you leave our school to try to get the D1 thing. One person says, well, you don't have a chance to go to the NFL from that school. What happens? Instead of having 35 people say, hey, be a great player at your school, earn a starting spot, bang it out, graduate,
Have some
Nobody's
fun.
going to care what level you played football at when you're 55
Nobody
years
asks
old.
those questions, dude. Nobody
So
gives a
first of all,
piss.
no one even believes that you play. Because
Oh
I'm
God,
50
no.
years old, and I was a scholarship player at UConn. Okay, I started, and when people in my area were I have an 8-year-old and he's playing sports, and when people actually find out that I play division, I very rarely ever talk about it because people don't believe it. I'm just telling the truth. This is the truth. People do not believe that you went to school for free on scholarship. They don't believe it. Like I just look at parents' faces when they're like, "Oh, you played a division, you played at UConn." I said, "Yeah." They're like, "Oh, what was that like?" They're like, "How much did you pay for school?" I was like, "I didn't pay anything. I went for free." They're like, "What?" Like they don't understand it, right? But yet with their own kid, they think that their kid is good at guess how. So like I'm probably one of like maybe 5 people they know in their whole life that have maybe played sports in college, and they don't believe that those people were that good anyway to begin with. So it's funny, but like when it comes to their own kid, they don't necessarily have that same understanding. So it's a very, very odd thing in recruiting where they have high expectations for their kid. If as soon as someone says your kid could be good, an ex-pro athlete says to him, "Wow, your kid's pretty." That's my favorite. An ex-pro athlete in football says he's pretty good. Like doesn't work for any college, hasn't done anything in recruiting, just looks at him and says, "Wow, that you're a really good player." There are players on my team at Syracuse that weren't any better than him. You know what I mean? It's such a strange part, but you're right. The 35 people that have said this is probably the range you fall within, right? And I I always wonder this, like when you would if you were to advise kids as to how to choose things, like I kind of try to tell them like choose 5 outliers on the high end, choose 5 outliers on the low end, and then choose the 20 schools in between that are
Sure.
really your range. I mean, is that like a fair like what would you advise parents in how to approach it from a recruiting standpoint?
Number one, I would tell them to shut down their social media. Now, think about this. When you and I were in high school, it was so rare that a kid from your area went to Division 1. Okay, so it was so rare. And like I remember my county, Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, we were lucky to have one Division 1 kid a year. My high school has never had a Division 1 pro kid. Maybe Villanova. I lie. Villanova and Buck. No, we've never had an FBS kid ever in whatever how many years. So my parents, they didn't think I could even play Division 2 football because even the Division 2 kids were so rare. The only way you ever saw any recognition on the Division 2 world was through the newspaper. Okay, so and so is going to go play football at Millersville. And it was huge, huge, huge news. But now what happens is Millersville, Bucknell, St. Anselm, Villanova, Temple, they invite everyone that wants to come to their junior day. Okay. I mean, I'm a 48-year-old guy. I'm fairly certain if I reached out to the right people, I could personally get a junior day invite as a 48-year-old dude because they don't do their research. And they're like, yeah, come by.
Derek
Fill
can
it
tell you
out.
Derek could tell you a great. I sent him a text on this. I won't name the school, but it's a
West Coast
top 10 program in the country that I've been invited to 2 of their camps.
A West Coast. Let's just call it a West Coast
Maybe they're invited by 8-year-old. I don't know.
FBS, and Dave's gotten 2 invites.
I got 2 invites.
But
you're
my
right.
so
100%
right. You're 100% right.
What happens then is, let's just hypothetically say my son goes to Temple's junior day. And now I put it on Facebook. Now the whole community thinks my son's getting recruited by Temple.
Right.
Yep, he's getting recruited by Temple.
Yep.
Yep. So then now you're sitting in the stands. Hey, how's the college search? Saw that Temple's on your son. Yeah, well, they haven't talked to us ever. You know, and then so what happens is you get to put on the jersey at Penn State, and then in December, the kid looks like he's a failure because he's going to Alvernia.
Right.
And it's
like,
not fair.
I thought you were going to Temple.
Not fair, you're right.
I thought this
It's
was
not
all
fair.
lined up.
Like,
and now it's like it's looked at as like a negative when really, like, buddy, you're part of like 3% that actually play college football. Like, go guy. Not, oh, well, I guess you'll do pretty good there.
But in 1994, even if they didn't have junior days then.
No.
They didn't have game day visits. But in 1994, like you used to, I remember sending out tapes. I sent out a tape to Pitt, Maryland, Penn State, just for the hell of it. And I got a form letter.
You got to take your shot, coach.
I lie. I sent out letters. I didn't even send out tapes. Okay? Because I didn't know how it worked. And they all responded.
Ooh, yeah.
They all responded. And they said, send your tape out. And I'm like, oh, I'm not doing that. I can't play there. Yeah, I just wanted to see.
You're like, at least I got a response. Like,
yeah. So, but now in 2024, they'll be like, come to camp. Come to camp. Now you go to camp. You're getting a picture with Debo, you know, or you're getting the picture with Nick, you know, and
everybody, they just stand there for hours.
Yeah.
Big.
And now you're getting recruited by Alabama, Temple, Villanova. Like, listen, it's no different than dating. If a girl says hi to you in the cafeteria, that doesn't mean that she wants to marry you. You know, like just because somebody, you know, so like, I think that the expectations are unfairly too high with the kids, and we always blame the kids and the kids and the kids, and it's really not them. Like it's the outside noise. And the parents trying to look good, man. Like they want to look
too,
good.
Man. I mean, listen, I tell Dave, like, you know, you might be the best player in the world, but if mom and dad are going to be a pain in my ass, dude, I don't need that. I don't want that. Like, how many times, like, when a guy, like, walk into the office and then the whole entourage comes into the office as well. And, you know, it's like, hey, I'm recruiting you, but I know for the next 4 years, this is going to have to be a relationship. Unfortunately for you, buddy, I'd love to have you, but your family just got you, quote unquote, unrecruited.
Yeah, it happens. Not as much as you think. Like
it depends on how good they are.
You're right.
Depends on how good they are.
Like our staff, like we're a little tiny bit different. Like we're all on the same page. We've been together for a while, and like if we have an overbearing parent, like I'm not gonna say we like set them straight, but we also sort of make it very clear with how it's gonna go. And then it sort of weeds itself out.
Yep.
And the greatest thing I've ever seen in coaching was we have a parent meeting the first day of camp when the parents drop their kids off. And our head coach says that I'm not going to have discussions about playing time, scholarship money, or anything football related. I will talk about academics and I will talk about mental health with you.
It's amazing.
And it will always be over a phone call. If you email me and the email starts with Johnny doesn't know I'm writing this, I'm printing it out and putting it on the locker room. I'm going to print your email out and put it in the locker room. You know, so we honestly, like, believe it or not, we don't get questions about playing time. Like, I don't mind moms or dads hitting me up about, you know, so-and-so's having some issues. Like, that's why we're there. But like,
correct. Like to help you, like aid in like, hey, he's struggling a little homesick right now. Like we just lost our uncle and, you know, or whatever. Like those are things that absolutely, like I want that comfort level with my players' families or whatever. You know, you want them to see you after a game and be like, hey, coach, how you doing? Right. Not like, you know, oh, that guy, like he should be playing my kid more. Like, come on. But I think that's important as well, to have that open communication. And that's what's nice about being at, maybe a smaller school like you guys have, where there is that more so of like, hey, like, let me talk to the kid. Let me talk to the people.
Well, it helps that we're contending to win the conference now. Like when we started 0-5 in 2019, I didn't even want to. I'm trying to like avoid eye contact, wearing blinders, like trying to get to the bus. Like those parents were like, well, they're the worst coaches in America. But now, since apparently we went to some clinics and now we're totally different and we know what we're doing, we don't have those issues in 2024.
Well, one of the things that players, and I don't know if they're taught this or not, but I remember my father saying this to me. If you have an issue with playing time, you have to talk to the position coach and your head coach and find out what it is, And I can tell you that even for myself as a player, when I went and talked to Skip Holtz about stuff, like things changed, and sometimes the head coach or the position coach hasn't maybe looked at you the same way, because he has used these two starters the last year, and maybe he just really has been paying. But you know what? If you talk to him and you have a conversation like a man about it, then they're going to go and talk to each other as coaches do. And they're going to say, okay, yeah, maybe we should give him a couple more reps in spring ball. Let's see if he does something with it, And I remember Skip Holtz, when he moved me over because I was a starting fullback as a freshman. Skip Holtz came in, did not like me as a fullback. And then I went to him, I said, hey, if you're really not going to play me at fullback, or you don't like me there, I'll go over to defense. I'll play defense. I just want to play. You know what I mean? So figure out where you think I can go, where I can have a chance to play again, and move me there. And move me over to linebacker. He said, and the linebacker coach didn't want to, who's a good friend of mine now, Vernon Hargraves, he was with the other staff. He saw me as a running back. So he really didn't want me over there if you were to ask him at the beginning. And I went to coach. I said, I just need a few reps in spring ball. They gave me 5 reps. I had 3 tackles and 5 reps. I got 10 reps the next spring practice, game scrimmage, whatever. I don't know if they do them as much anymore, but they used to do them back then all the time. Every week, every Saturday was a game scrimmage. And I got 10 reps. By the spring game, I was getting about half the reps at my position. And then I went in the next fall as the 4th guy. There were 3 linebackers. I was the 4th guy. I was kind of the guy that would fill in everywhere, right? Played a lot. And then I started the end of the year and started my whole senior year. But the point is that you have to, if you want to speak up, your mom and dad cannot speak up for you. Coaches don't respect that. And I realized right then, and my father said it to me, you want more playing time? You want to get you go talk to coach. You go instead of complaining to me. We can complain all we want to each other. Nothing's going to happen. We could gossip all we want with whoever we want until you talk to someone that can actually possibly change your future and have that conversation with them. And they may say to you, hey, we don't think you're good enough yet. Well, that might mean you might have to work harder. They may say, we have you at this position. We don't think this is the right place for you. You got to make decisions from that standpoint. But until you talk to a coach, actually talk to a coach, that's why the open door policies that most people have there, right? Because guys will go and talk on their own instead of go and talk to the source who could possibly help them and get a question answered. And I think that's a thing that kids nowadays are not as, because they're always on social media, they're not as comfortable doing that. And I think that's part of the issue with the transfer portal. I bet you half these kids, if they went in and have a conversation with their position coach or their head coach or both at the same time, they would probably solve half of those problems. But what they do now is they talk to the mom and dad or their friend or whoever, and they basically gossip and they say, screw this guy, I'm out of here, and they never talk to anybody. And I think that's the biggest, like, part of becoming a man, even though you're still a kid, maybe, you in your brain at 18, 19, you have to become a man maturity wise to be able to talk to coaches. And even if you're scared, you still have to talk to them.
Right, you got to do it. And they'll respect you more for doing that because they understand where you're at. Like, I know you're nervous right now, man, but this is part of this process. And like, let me help you, you know what I mean? Kind of go through it. And I do think it's a lot of like, you know, the social media stuff where like these guys are just here. Like, I say it all the time, like, hey, like you could answer this. Like, if I text you this question, you'd have a paragraph long answer. But now we're looking face to face and you're giving me 2 words.
You know, I think the big thing with coaches is you have to have the courage to tell them exactly where they stand. You can't say you're not good enough. You're not mentally tough enough. You don't know the defense. You have to tell them exactly where you stand. And like I always say, like you make the depth chart. But we're also very clear. We have 10 different things we evaluate kids on, like on our team.
Right.
And if I have a kid that comes to me and asks about playing time, I don't know, 9 out of 10 times, I'm like really looking at myself and I'm like, he does have a point.
Mm-hmm.
And then we got to adjust it because most of the time our guys don't come in about playing time because we've explained it enough. But if a kid, I always feel like if a kid has the courage to come and talk to you about it,
100%.
that he could be right. And as a younger coach, if a kid came and questioned me, forget you. But now I'm like I don't like I'm old enough. I don't care if I make a mistake. Like I'm man enough and confident.
Yeah, you
enough,
own
like,
it.
Hey man, you're right. Like we have a great player, man. Like he's a really good player, and he was backing up an even better player. And I'm tight with him. He's like, Coach, you know, you told me I was going to play more, and I didn't play at all, or I only played 3 or 4 plays. I'm like, oh man, you're
like,
right.
Shit. You're right,
you know,
dude.
and I'm
like, you're right.
Yeah. So, you know, you have to listen to them sometimes. They deserve that, especially if they do have the courage to come and talk. For sure.
I think that's something too that, you know, like some staffs do a fantastic job of this, encouraging them, and then some staffs
they don't give a
don't
shit.
don't need to, you know. So if it doesn't work out, but I think it's an important thing. I think it's important for parents to understand that that's how it works in college. Like your son's now a man, and that he's got to go and talk to him, because if I, as dad parent, go and talk to them, they'll actually look more down on you than they will, even if you're a great player. You might even you could be a starter. If dad is calling up all the time, the coaches don't respect you in the same way as if you take ownership of your own career. You know what I mean?
Right.
Am I right on that? Is that a fair?
Absolutely. I mean, like, and when it comes to playing time and recruiting, I'm ignoring everything you say as a parent. Everything. When we're on a recruiting tour, and this is how it starts. I know he's my kid. I just block everything out. I don't even listen to it. And the other thing that I don't listen to at all, well, you know, the coach doesn't use him right.
Oh, that's the other one.
Like, I'm not listening to you. Like, if you're bashing a coach, like, I got a problem with you. Like, come on. And listen, there's some bad coaches out there, but even the bad coaches are usually trying their best.
At least they're out there giving an effort, man. You know what I'm saying? Like, they're still there doing all that stuff. Like, give them a break. And maybe they just don't even know, like, that they're that bad. You know what I'm saying? Because it just is what it is. They're trying, they're hard, whatever. But, like, when I hear that, the first thing, like, I'm already, like...
I think part of it's too much, you know, rec sports and travel sports created an environment where there's so many people coaching. Some of them are great. Some of them don't know what they're doing. some of it's daddy ball, some of it's not. So they're cultured in this like crazy thought process that everyone is out to screw them. So, right, like it's kind of weird because it must be odd. Now you're getting better players, so it's not the better players. It's going to be less likely that that's going to be the chance. But I'm sure D2 and D3, at D3 probably it happens probably all the time. D2 because there's still some money involved. You're still going to have maybe a more of an elite level player. I would say like D2 is just an FCS kid falling through the cracks. That's all it is. But it is that like they've navigated this world for like 15 years or 14 years in youth sports, and they have to not bring that with them when the kid's getting recruited for college. They have to, once they go to high school and start playing in high school, and you start playing varsity high school sports where all the varsity coaches, good, bad, or indifferent, are paid. So they are trying to win. That's the goal. They may not everybody wins, but they are trying to win. That is their goal, is to win. Once you get to that point, the mindset really has to shift to, hey, how do we figure out for our kid to become the best that he can be? And focus on that and the academics and all the things that are associated with that if we want them to play in college, and get out of the travel and rec ball thought process where, you went over here and you thought it'd be a great situation, and then 5 coaches, 5 starting positions, all the dads. They have to get out of that. And it's crazy because for years that happened when we were kids. There was daddy ball. I mean, but what happened was with social media, it started to move all the way up to the college level, which is the crazy part to me. And then the transfer portal and NIL has only fostered more of an environment from it where people keep thinking, oh, it didn't work out for me. I could go over here or I could go over there. I honestly, I don't have a question from it because it's just like, this is kind of the culture that it is. But what would be great is if you could kind of talk about how you talked about setting the stage. What do parents need to think about as they're going through high school sports? Like the cold hard facts of what do I need to think about in order to be a college player? No level included here. In order to be a college athlete, what are the things that I have to take care of to have a chance? And the key word is chance. Doesn't mean it's guaranteed. A chance to be a college athlete.
Number one, they have to realize that you're going to get more money for your academics than you are football.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah.
And we're giving out, in some cases, they're getting a half ride for academics before football money's even included. And 9th grade counts. It does not matter. This is another one that I ignore this as soon as I hear this is, so how are your grades? Well, my first year, that's it. For us, it's over. But I think the biggest thing that the parents need to do is just trust and depend on the high school coach. Not depend on him, but trust his opinion.
Right.
And then they have to direct the young person on the steps, help them set up a Twitter page. I didn't know until yesterday that I think you have to be 18 to have a Twitter. And I asked a kid, I said, what's your teammate's Twitter? I can't find him. He goes, well, he put his real birthday on there, so he's not searchable. I'm like, I didn't know that. But anyway, setting up a Twitter page for the young person, teaching them, I equate recruiting as as applying for a job. When you send a message to a coach, you don't want to just talk. You don't want to talk in slang. You don't want to type without a period. You don't want to type without any capitalization. Just try to help them with that and be like, okay, you need to do your applications. You need to apply to the clearinghouse. You need to do this. It's totally okay for them to read an email and say, okay, John, you have got to get your application done. And to be honest with you, my mom did my application. I think my mom or my dad did my applications. Like,
I
I'm
can
not gonna
remember
lie.
sitting down. I can remember also like going to my guidance counselors and asking questions, right? Or even older teammates that had done it, right? Or had just been a part of it, like, hey, what did you do? Like I can remember doing that a lot. And that was in an era of there was no social media when I was coming out. It was 2004, right? So it was still VHS types, DVD type stuff. And all the communication was, look, my head coach wasn't, out there like, he didn't know that world either, but you respected what he did know, right? And then you kind of took it from there. And then every place I went and visited, those college coaches would help me, even if it wasn't their school, right? Just the answers to the questions that I needed in terms of your application, get it done, or apply for grants here, or do that type of stuff. Like, and then handling that paperwork now shows that coach that, hey, I can count on this guy off the field, which only translates to his play. So every little piece of what you do, and also everything that you post, we see or is going to be looked at, So you got to kind of look at it, like you said, like a job interview, right? And then obviously when you start at a certain age, you'll progress and it'll get better if you continue to like do the right things, But I think guys really they struggle with that a little bit because they think they can just, kind of wing it or whatever. And I think that's like an issue.
I had to bring the dog on. He was
Hey, looks great. The dog looks great.
All right. I think the biggest piece of advice you reminded me is those kids that are graduating. Just ask them the process. Like it's funny because like when we finally are like to the finish line with recruiting, and we're talking to the parents and like the look of relief on their face that it's over.
It's brutal.
Yeah. Yeah. And like they all say the same thing. I wish I would have known. I wish I would have known. Like when we did this is unbelievable to me. And this is again, like, I think it's part of the 10% rule that you only listen to 10% is, I hosted, before my camps, I just did Zooms. I talk about this. I do the Zoom so they can learn about the camp and how I'm going to set it up and how it's going to be organized. And I started this when we did a camp during COVID, which was wild. But I also said, listen,
kudos for that one.
what we did was I said, listen, we're going to do a 15-minute presentation on recruiting. And like, I think we had 48 people out of 180 showed up. Like, and I'm on the Zoom and I'm like, you guys don't have any other questions? Like, and the kids were asking questions. What do you look at as a linebacker? What do you look at for a corner? Like, and I think the major problem is that people don't even know what they don't know in the recruiting game. That's the biggest problem. They don't know what they don't know. And, I think that there's a lot of them that look and they take the advice that we're trying to give them and they're like, hey, thank you very much. Like, we appreciate that. And my biggest advice to kids at this time, like, you need to go to a D2 camp to see where you're at.
Right. And then you can gauge whether you're, okay, maybe I can't stack up, or shit, maybe you go there and dominate. And it's like, all right, now I really know, like, this is what I need to do.
Yeah. Yeah. Because if, and there's a lot of players that we may not offer right after camp that we will offer,
correct,
in a month or in a couple weeks or in 6 months. But there's also a lot of players that, man, they're not the player that maybe they were projected to be.
Mm-hmm.
So,
no, it's that's incredibly good point, because that's a mid gauge. D2 is a mid gauge. You can see if you're above there or below. from a playing standpoint. It's interesting with how recruiting is, and the fact that you have to really, until you actually go through it, I guess you don't actually know, and everybody's experience is different. So
I
even
think that's key. That's key. What you
yeah,
just
I
said,
mean,
the
I could have gone
individuality
through
of it.
something, and you could have gone through something, and Derek could have gone through something, but our kids' process could be very different, right? And that's an important thing for people to know, that to get the kind of information that can help you, but also to gauge it the right way, and to be able to understand, like, the process of recruiting. Do you talk a little bit about, because I get this question all the time, and um it kind of drives me crazy. You see freshmen or eighth graders that post an offer, okay? And I always tell people, I would say 99% of the time, those are uncommittable. I'm talking about, and it's usually Division One, right? But I guess there could be a rare instance, if a kid is really, really an elite kid, that it is. Um, how do you, like, what do parents need to understand about early recruiting? Because they all think that they know some ninth grader that got an offer, and they compare themselves to that person and say, I'm not that different talent wise, which may be true. It could be true, right? Can you explain to them, like, what offers are at that early age, and what they really mean? Because I think parents really do not understand that at all.
Well, that's, we're not in that world at all.
Right.
But the Division One world, and not every school. I do know that there's some schools that are really, 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 really loyal, where if they offer, they stay
They'll
with them. In
follow
fact,
through.
I had a quote, and I'm not going to mention the name. This is a positive thing, though.
Right.
He said, there's a couple kids out there that were a little bit better, but we had already offered these kids, and we're not going to back out. And I thought that
Wow.
was great.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
actually great to hear, that there are those guys that it's not all the horror stories that you hear,
Right. But then there's, the Power Fives, the FBS play schools, like, they don't care. Like, sorry, it's gone. Like, and I think a lot of them do it to be the first in. Like, for us,
Yes.
we offered two young men yesterday. I did personally yesterday, offering a couple more today. And, the kids are almost in tears. Like, it's cool. And they'll never forget us. And I know for sure that because we're the first in, they're going to come and visit us. Now, so that's why they do it. What's different with us is that, like I told you before, if we offer someone and then he doesn't necessarily pan out, unless it's something with this character, which we'll just say, hey, we're not going to go this direction, it's not a fit, they're going to get something. But with the higher levels, they're just like, yeah, we got to move on. Plus the turnover in staff. I have a friend who has a son that was offered by an FBS school last year at this time. There was a new coach came in and they re-offered him. So I think take it as a grain of salt. It's a huge thing. It's I tell my close friends that have kids, I'm like, listen, you need to get that first offer. If you get that first offer, there's going to be people that offer you after that. There's schools that we compete against that offer kids after we offer them, and they've never even met him in person.
Like, because they look at the staple, right, of like, you guys are winning now, so let me try that template. So if he's good enough to play there, he's obviously good enough to play with me, right?
Yeah, someday I'm going to have a fake profile, a fake account, and I'm going to offer a kid, and then I'm going to see everyone else do it.
That's definitely has to be an issue in conference too. I'm guessing.
It's one of those issues too. Like you see these kids, like certain kids higher level. I've seen stories of them posting fake offers in order to right. So hey, I just got a Tennessee offer, no Tennessee offer whatsoever. Yet now all of a sudden, he's got 5 other offers. It's like, what are you talking? What are we doing?
It hurt us a couple times this year, and with kids that nobody had been on, and that's frustrating.
That has to be frustrating. Yeah.
It's frustrating because we see him at the camp, no one else does. We have him on a visit. He posts his visit, and then the other school comes through, and it's to the point where we might say, hey, like in those situations, if you post anything on social media, it's gone. Like it's gone. Like you're not going to market yourself
using
us
using
us anymore. Like now it's so early, it doesn't matter.
Right,
and
right.
When we were the worst team in Division II, we wanted our name to get out there the best we could, and we still like to have our name out there, but like we don't need to let our opponents know that this 6'1" corner with a 3.8 GPA that runs a 4.55 has visited our campus.
That's a great point. When you're on the way up and you're trying to change the culture, you'll take any PR that can be positive and get it. So if you offer a kid and someone else offers them and never saw it for, I don't care. I offered them first. I'm recognizing but when you start to win and you're on top, now it becomes like, hey, now everyone's just trying to me too you. And they're me too and everything you do, because they're like, well, they're winning, and if they offer this guy, maybe we should offer this guy. It cuts out the evaluation process. That's why I say always conference wise. Yeah. That's a huge issue within conferences, I'm sure.
It's because I'm glad I can do the work for you, buddy.
Well, they don't want to miss somebody that you identified and get beat by him next year if they could have had him.
Right.
And how long before guys, like you said, start creating like, hey, get all over this guy just because, hey, take a spot, and now it's like, okay, that guy really isn't what we're talking about. It's like a little pawn.
I know, me personally, if I miss on a kid, like if I didn't know about him and he signed somewhere else and he's really, really good, like I'm super pissed, like enraged at myself.
Well, competitive, right? Like you're a competitor.
Yeah.
So and recruiting and that's what makes you, when people mention your name, like he's a great recruiter. And that's something I always thought was just like one of the coolest titles to have, on top of not just being the best coach on the field, but also like in recruiting. If you're you have a certain percentage of I have these guys and I nailed every one of them, right? Like I just think that adds a whole level of something different, because recruiting isn't on the field, right? Like there are guys that can do things on a field that just do it. But if you can get a guy to really buy into what you're talking about to a point where you're going to like he's making a decision about his life to come to your school, I think that's just such a different type of, move and just as a person who you are in general, that you can do those things, So I always used to love that. Yeah, you're competitive. I want every dude on this board.
I think that at the division, I think that the overrated part is that the kid is coming for the coach. I always tell people in the recruiting process now is that this St. Anselm College is the place that I've been able to sell the easiest, because I believe in absolutely everything that we're doing. And there were some places where I'd be like, yeah, man, like I don't believe in it. Like I can't, I got to be careful. But here I believe in everything that we're doing. And that's makes it so much easier to sell, and Coach Bick, I got to drop Coach Bick's name. He recruits Jersey with me. He works so hard. Like I'm on the podcast right now and he's grinding right now and he's getting ahead of me, like in the same staff. So I think that I always tell our staff, like, hey man, like when we have a recruiting visit, the guys that you produce are what you are, like as a recruiter. Like if you don't have anybody on the board, well, what have you been doing? And this
Right.
is like this is the time where we're gonna get ahead. And we don't do a ton of like driving from school to school to school because it's it's sort of time consuming and a waste of time where I can bang out 30 kids today and evaluate them versus driving to 5 different schools where I'm talking to some kids who may not even be interested. So I think it's all about like, sitting down and looking at your computer, reading, responding to messages. I think that, with Twitter, you're always trying to build your brand of the school. And when you're trying to build the brand of the school, you're trying to build your own brand as well. So there's recognition. And Coach Bick and I, when I started recruiting New Jersey, I just wanted to make sure that we covered it all. And Coach Bick and I try to do that. And New Jersey's so talented for football, and there's no D2s.
None.
There's no D2s, and we have a really good product to offer too, where kids are like, man, this is really, really nice. I mean, we have 30 kids right now that are going to be on our roster from actually probably about 38 New Jersey and New York kids. So we're really proud of that. And you have to watch a lot of video. You have to send a lot of invites. You got to get in front of their faces to get them to come up. So we're proud of what we're doing. And that's been part of our success because we've recruited well in Florida, Texas, Maryland, New Jersey, Massachusetts. We've done a good job.
Awesome, Coach. Dude, it's been great having you on. I mean, I've learned so much just about how it's great to hear a coach who's actually in the recruiting process all the time, how he understands what's going on, and not just understands and but is telling you how it works, right? And you're hearing it, and I think it's great for the parents. I mean, and I want to tell you this: you broke our record, so we have I'm able to see the continuous viewers at one time. So continuous viewers means at any 1 second how many people are viewing the podcast. So you reached a high. It's still at that high, believe it or not, of 1,081 continuous viewers at the same time. So that's how
Cool.
important recruiting is to people and understanding the college football process. And we have a lot of great guests on, but they're all trying to understand like what happens here. And you shared that so eloquently and directly, which is, I mean, the key really is the direct contact and really directly explaining how it works. It's just, I mean, you guys already have a great program at St. Anselm. It's only going to get better. We know a few of the kids that, have gone there and so there are kids that we really liked. So, we wish you the best going forward and stay in touch. We'd love to have you on anytime you want to talk.
Absolutely. You got to get Coach Bick and Coach Adam on. We have Coach Ferguson's from Texas, offensive coordinator. Coach Jonke is a Brown grad. He's smarter than the rest of us, based on his degree. Coach Majunkin is a West Coast guy, along with Coach Honorable, who's our corners coach and is a huge reason why we're where we're at in the secondary. But we have our strength coach, Coach Williams, is just unbelievable as well. So if you guys need anybody else, they'd love to come and promote the program. We're always trying to pull it forward. I love our staff. I love working for Coach Adam. I love our AD. It's ultimately it's a great situation that we have going on.
Awesome.
We're definitely going to take you up on that. Derek will be
absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. It's honestly an honor. It really is.
Coach, I appreciate you taking the time, man. Really excellent. Thank you so much.
Have a great day, guys. Coach.
All right.
That was great. That was fantastic.
Look, if you're a kid going through it, if you're a parent, if you're a coach, he just gave you the layout of how it is, right? And he's a D2 guy, but he also like that stuff spans across the board. Like recruiting 101, right? Like have a good GPA. Like he literally gave you the foundation of you need this. Look, you go to this camp, this is how it works. Bang, 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 right? So, I mean, look, you just got all the information you need to move ahead in terms of that. I thought it was extremely interesting, right? Like some of the things he brought up just about the entire, the recruiting world itself. And I think it's, it should help anybody who listened to it.
Yeah, no, it was phenomenal, and it's great that I like that his staff is guys that want to get on there, and that's part of the new world too. Is you know, getting your program for people to understand what your program can offer, and so we encourage other coaches to reach out to me or Derek, and we like helping good guys, and we like interviewing good guys and guys that are straightforward and and really want to help kids, and that ultimately that's what it is about. But we also love covering the topics. When guys can get on there and tell exactly what's going on, it really helps. It really helps kids to understand it, parents to understand it, because as a parent myself, and you're a newly crowned parent, no matter what sport it is, this kind of, I mean,
right,
obviously
this goes across the board, right?
Yeah, like, it was football, but it was across the board. So it was football focused, but it really, I mean, it doesn't matter. Like what he talked about, a lot of things he talked about were really things that would cut across other sports as well. And I think, I know, not I don't think, I know that was really helpful and informative. And, when people, I love the fact that he touched on, like, you hear it from one person, and that thing stuck with me. Like 10 people are telling you one thing and one person tells you something different. It
and you
doesn't
go with the
mean
one person, right? It's like,
it doesn't mean that he couldn't be right, but you should do a little more investigation before you just believe that, right? Do a little more investigation. No one's saying he's not right, but we're saying if all these people over there don't investigate a little bit, ask some more questions before you just trust the one person that's telling you,
right. Like it's a numbers game, right? Like 10 is more than one. Like which, you know what I'm saying? Like, and I get it. And like maybe you don't want to believe it, but then when you keep asking questions and now it's 20 to 1, like what
if
are
the
we
most
talking about?
beautiful woman, and I'm and you're a handsome guy, I'm a handsome guy. Well, I was a handsome guy. I'm getting older now. But if the most best looking, as good looking as you are, when the best looking woman in the room comes right over to you, okay, or wants to talk to you, I have to ask a few questions, because there are other guys that might be better looking than me walking around the room, and
They're
I gotta
why
know.
Are you coming over here?
I gotta know what is it that really is going on, because those 10 girls who are cute, who probably are in my wheelhouse, I could go date one of them and know I'm gonna do well. If I'm gonna date you, I really got to know why I'm dating you and what it is. Well, yeah, what it is about me that really is that special, that's different from him over there, because and I think that's an important thing. You got to just do a little investigation. But it was great overall, and yeah. Look, now you have an arsenal of more guys you can talk to.
I'll message them all today.
All right. Well, on that note, we'll get let me find it. We'll get it going.